It's the big game. Time for some smoked garlic Parmesan pepper chicken wings with smoked blue cheese dressing. Oh yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Smokey Dave Presents. Today's episode is a special one because we're going to be doing something very special. We're going to be making some smoked chicken wings with smoked blue cheese dressing. And we're going to be doing this for that's right, I can't say this word and this word by itself because a certain national sports team or organization says that they own those words when used together, which is ridiculous, but that's the way it is, and they've got better lawyers than I've got. So we'll refer to it as the big game, like all the other advertisers who don't want to pay them lots of money do. Anyway, let's get started.
Note the NFL National Football League may not use in any way, shape, or form, in text media or any other form of media, the word Smokey Dave Presents, which is the specific
Property of Smokey Dave Presents, and they may not use it unless they pay me lots of money. Okay, I'm going to have before you a sharp knife and a pair of kitchen shears. Now these things are awesome and you should have a pair if you don't. Links in the description for both of these. This is a Marku knife, by the way. Now, we're going to prep these wings. So the first thing we're going to do, I'm going to cut off the tips. We're not going to throw those away. Those can go into bone broth. Link in the description for making bone broth out of chicken, and we're just going to cut these. We may not need these, but they are useful. I mean, you can use them the same way. If you don't have a very good sharp knife like this that can cut through the bone and cartilage very well, the scissors are actually pretty nice. Let me demonstrate. Keep these off to the side, but you can use these scissors too. You can simply go like that. A little bit harder than a good sharp knife, but they do work. There's 1,001 uses for these things though. So anyway, we're gonna cut all these tips off. And you always want to buy your wings like this. That's the least expensive. Remember, the more that the butcher has to do to prep them, the more money you're going to pay for them. Not to mention, you won't get these, which means you won't be able to use them in your bone broth. There's a lot of good cartilage and connective tissue in the tips, which is exactly what you want in a bone broth. Well, game day wouldn't be game day with just some wings. We need some good charcuterie. So we're gonna smoke us some of my favorite cheese, some Manchego. I got two of them here because I've got a lot of family members who love this as much as I do. And of course our old standby, Seriously Sharp from Cabot. And we got our Amish, however you pronounce that, crumbled blue cheese. But we're not going to pack this into a chunk like we did with the tomahawk steak. This time, we're going to smoke this in its crumbled form. We're going to put it on a rack with some cheesecloth underneath to prevent the cheese from falling through, but allow the smoke to fully smoke this. Because of the strong flavor of blue cheese, we need to really get a little extra smoke in there to make a good smoky blue cheese dressing to dip our chicken wings in. And anything else you want to dip into it. We'll cut. I'm going to try to cut it. This is a 2-pound block. Our usual cut is to cut it in approximately 1/2 pound squares. A 1/2 pound square like this smokes in 2 hours perfectly. So I typically try to keep all my cheese pieces around that size. And the reason, of course, is if you smoke a much larger piece, you can end up with it being extremely smoky, even bitter on the outside, and no smoke in the center. I've experimented with this for over 10 years, and I found that this size and then aged for at least 3 days and more, it'd be better for 7, is perfect. And you get a perfect smoke all the way through. However, I believe everyone should experiment. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna carefully cut the rind off so that we can get a better smoke penetration on this manchega. Some people like to use the rinds for cooking. Parmesan, yes, but the rind here I find to be a little musty, not really good. I wouldn't really want to have that in a soup or stew or sauce. So I typically just cut it off, just like that. You don't have to get all of it, but you want to get most of it. And that way your smoke will penetrate better. And for this, I typically cut these wedges into 4. And they're a little less, they're not quite a half pound, maybe more of a third. Now here we have fairly heavy cheesecloth, and by heavy I mean this one is extremely small mesh. It's typically considered a heavy cheesecloth. You don't need it this heavy for what I'm doing. I'm simply using it to keep the cheese from falling through the grates on the smoker when we're down there, and also to hold the cheese together while we dunk it in the brine. So these are the purposes of the cheesecloth today. And you can certainly use a much lighter one. This is just what I happen to have. So we're going to dump this on here. Try not to make a huge mess. And we're just going to take the corners, pick it up like that. Try to hold them up while we get our little jug out of here. Just like that. And basically make a little jug of, or a little bag of cheese. So yeah, there's our chunky blue cheese. We'll tie this up. And then when we get down to the smoker, we'll lay it flat again. And that way the smoke will be able to penetrate a little bit better. And that's all we're gonna do. All right, so we got some of that beautiful pecan my friend Alex gave us. And we're gonna add to that this apple. Now this is the apple wood I chopped up in the video I did last summer. So apple and pecan today is one of my favorite mixes. We'll fill up the old generator. We're gonna do a full 2 hours, so let's get her started.
I'm gonna stick the chicken, which is still in its brine. I'm gonna stick it on the lower rack here. I'll stick each piece in there and pretty much fill that rack up, as you can see. And then once I'm done with that, let me get out the blue cheese that's still in its cheesecloth wrapper. Let that brine kind of drain out. That doesn't matter if a little of that brine gets on the chicken wings in the lower rack. That's going to be perfectly fine. So I'm going to unwrap that and lay it flat so all of those crumbles get a nice smoke on it. And then we'll also put in the rest of our cheese that we're going to do for the big game. After 2 hours, I brought everything back in and I put the blue cheese crumbles into a small bowl and I rinsed them several times with some filtered water. And I'm squeezing out the excess and I'm going to put it in this colander and I'll take it out of the bag and let it drain for a couple of hours in the refrigerator until the curds are fairly dry. Hello everyone. Just wanted to cut in here in a minute to promote some merch we have. Of course, I have my original "You May Fascinate a Woman with a Piece of Cheese" t-shirt. We also have our new t-shirt that's somewhere in this vicinity. I'm going to show you. I haven't gotten one yet, but you can get one now if you're going to cut the cheese Just make sure it's Smokey Dave's. Hey everyone, if you like our content, consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell so you'll know when we get new videos dropped. And leave a comment. I always read all the comments and I'll answer any questions you may have, if I know the answer, and even if I don't. Anyway, back to the video. Now we're going to make our blue cheese dressing, and one of the first ingredients is mayonnaise. There's only one problem. The problem is sodium calcium EDTA. This is a preservative that allows things like mayonnaise to be stored on the shelf at room temperature without refrigeration. The only problem with it is the side effects can include kidney damage, nausea, vomiting, and even death. I don't prefer to have that in my blue cheese dressing, so I'm going to make my own mayonnaise. So here's how we're going to do it. So to make our mayonnaise, we're going to start out with 2 eggs, 4 teaspoons of lemon. You can also use vinegar. It just needs an acid. Then we're going to have a teaspoon of stone ground mustard. You can use any kind, Dijon, yellow, whatever you like. This is what I have. And in addition to that, we're going to use a teaspoon of salt and a teaspoon of ground pepper. And of course the main ingredient, which is the oil, 1 cup of, I'm using 1/2 a cup of avocado and 1/2 a cup of olive oil here. I'm going to be mixing this up in an old pickle jar because it has a mouth big enough for my immersion blender. And as we're not going to be storing this very long, it'll only last about 7 to 10 days. You don't want to keep it any longer than that in the refrigerator. So let's get this blended up. Well, I'm just going to put the ingredients in the jar, starting with the eggs. And I just wanted to say one more word about that sodium calcium EDTA preservative. Now, the FDA says that it's okay for us to eat it in small quantities. But lately, for some reason, I haven't been able to trust much of what the FDA says anymore. So I'm just going to make my own mayonnaise from here on out, and as you can see, it's very simple to do. We just add our ingredients, and then we'll stick the immersion blender in and blend it up. The mayonnaise is fully blended. Now it's time to make our blue cheese dressing. So we're putting in 1/4 cup of our smoked blue cheese chunks. And I'm sorry about the camera angle, it's a little bit low. And then we'll be following that with 1/4 cup of our mayonnaise that we just made. So that goes into the mix. And following that will be 1/4 cup of sour cream. And once we have all these 3 main ingredients in, I'll throw in a little splash of lemon, followed by a 1/4 teaspoon of salt and a 1/4 teaspoon of ground pepper. And then I'll whisk these together, and you'll notice that I have a carton of heavy cream there, and that's just used to thin out the mixture. It tends to get very thick, and we want it to be a dressing, so we want it to be a little bit thinner so we can dip our chicken wings in. So I'm using some Luana peanut oil here, a fresh gallon of peanut oil. Yeah, I'm going to put in about 2 inches in the bottom of my large Dutch oven. Now I'm using a cast iron Dutch oven because it holds the heat much better, and the heat won't drop when you put the chicken wings in as quickly as it would in many other kinds of containers. So here's our smoked chicken wings back out of the smoker, And before we put them in the hot oil while it's heating up, I'm going to put a nice light coating of cornstarch on it. And this will help hold our ultimate coating of our Parmesan, pepper, garlic, chicken wing coating. We'll be making that in a later section here. But first, let's get all of these chicken wings coated. And again, we want to bang off any extra cornstarch there. We just want a light coating on each one. And I'll be checking our oil temperature. Now we want a temperature of about 375 degrees. So I'm going to be using my digital thermometer to check that. And then I'll put, anywhere between 6 and 7 of the wing pieces in each time. Again, the cast iron keeps the heat nice and even. It doesn't drop down too fast. And that's very important if you don't want to have greasy wings, which we certainly don't want that. So the first batch is cooked and I've got a bowl. I'm going to check the internal temperature on one of the drummies. And I definitely want an internal temperature of at least 165 degrees. With wings, we want to cook them a little bit higher than regular chicken because we want it to fall off the bone. All right, so now I'm going to make the sauce that's going to coat our chicken wings. I'm going to start out with this Kerrygold butter, some of the best butter, about 3/4 of a stick. And we're going to do 4, 5, 6 big cloves of garlic. We'll end up with almost a 1/4 cup of garlic when we're done. We're going to crush them and then put them in the garlic press and press them out. And they'll go into that butter once it's melted and starting to bubble. There's about a 1/4 cup of garlic, all crushed and ready. And our butter here is just starting to bubble, so we're going to put the garlic in there. Let that just toast a little bit with the butter. Then I'm going to shred myself a full cup of Smokey Dave's smoked Parmesan. Oh yeah. And about 2-3 tablespoons of black peppercorns I'm going to crush in the mortar over there. We'll add those in too. We won't add all of it. We're going to sprinkle some on top of the chicken wings once we got it in, but we're going to get the bulk of our coating mix made up here and put it in our big pink super big bowl. So into the super big bowl it goes. And of course our chicken wings have all finished and they've been draining a little bit on that paper towel, so in they go as well. And that cornstarch coating is gonna just hold on to that Parmesan, garlic, peppercorn sauce. Oh, it's gonna be good. I'm gonna add a little extra Parmesan, I think. Maybe throw in another little bit of crushed peppercorn, just for good measure. And then I'm going to give it a big old shake and get all of those chicken wings nice and coated. Yep, give it a big shake. Then it's time to plate. Now that looks delightful.
Let's try one of these delicious wings. Smoky chicken meat, Parmesan and peppercorn and garlic just pop. Plain or with the dressing, absolutely delicious. It's a game changer.
And don't forget the charcuterie board. Can't forget our dips and chips and cheese and crackers, along with our wings and beer as we watch the big game. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope all of you who are out there enjoyed this video, and if you are going to watch the big game, I hope you enjoy that as well. And until next time, don't forget, it's no joke, everything's better with smoke.